All right, Melita, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me today. I really wanted to talk to you because like our conversations have been really interesting over the last month or so, and I really wanted people to kind of be able to eavesdrop on all the fun stuff that we've been chatting about. so so I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that you agreed to do this today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really honored and happy to be a part of this as well. I love your bigger vision of your podcast, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. I love being able to share the stories of, especially so you and I kind of got in touch because you do a type of therapy that is really interesting, but also not really well known. Because you do a lot of body work and stuff. So that's kind of, how our, relationship started a little bit. But to kind of go backwards, I would really like for the audience just to kind of get an idea of who you are and what you do in your own words so that I don't completely botch all the amazing things that you do.
Okay, well, let's see where to start. I wear many hats, so where to start? I'll start by saying, a long story short, when I was young, I used to think that I wanted to be a nurse because my dad planted that seed. So I always knew that I wanted to help people, but I didn't realize how I was going to help people. So once I got to college, I took my first pharmacology class and I was like, no, 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 this is not for me. So then I spent a lot of time not knowing what I wanted to do, several years of not knowing what I wanted to do. So I looked into like forensic science, I looked into criminology, I looked into like becoming a coroner, like all kinds of stuff, just to like, I've always been fascinated with the body. I've always been fascinated with nature. Like my grandfather was my first herbal teacher. And I remember spending a lot of time meditating in the woods with my little dog at the time when I was growing up. And I remember doing yoga before I even knew that there was such a thing called yoga, which was really cool. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I flitted around in college like a lot of us do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took a break and got married to my first husband. He was in the Navy, so we moved to Virginia Beach and we were there for a while. I worked at a bookstore, which was awesome. Got to explore my love of books and got to just dive more into me and what makes me tick and what I wanted. So when we came back to WVU, we both enrolled to finish our college degrees, and I actually got my accounting degree. And
This is really funny to me. Knowing you the way that I know you, that's really funny.
it really is. A lot of people don't know that about me because they know me from this aspect or this lifetime, as I refer to it, right? But I was a really good accountant. Like I can crunch some numbers with the best of them.
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do math in my head anymore, so I don't even try. Um, but I thought, oh, well, accountants help people, and I was really good at it. So I just went for it, got my degree, and started out doing accounting. And I realized that I was sitting inside of my beautiful office in my heels and, business casual every single day, that I was literally dying inside. And so I knew I had to get out of there. And my mantra became, I have to get out of here. And it was totally unintentional mantra. I didn't like set this mantra up, but every day I'd sit down on my desk to do that paperwork and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here. And so 2009 happened and we weren't getting as many jobs as normal. And so, one of the big boss ladies walked in and she said, we have to let go of you effective immediately. And I was like, oh, okay. Wow. So I was really shocked. I was really pissed, but then it hit me, oh my God, you asked for this.
Yeah.
And the universe literally handed it to you on a silver platter, basically. So I actually took unemployment for the first time in my entire life. I had worked since I was 16 years old. So I was 30 and I just took some time off to figure out what I wanted to do. So I took a year off. It's the first 6 months on unemployment, the last 6 months in massage therapy school. And I knew massage wasn't it, but I knew it was the beginning of whatever it was. Like
It's
it
kind of
was
like a
the
gateway
first,
drug, massage,
it totally
to
is.
other body work.
And I highly recommend it as a gateway drug
Yeah.
for sure. I am still a licensed massage therapist. Now my bigger overarching title, if you will, is holistic health practitioner, because I do clinical herbalism, functional nutrition. I do Akashic record readings. I do Bowen Therapy. I do yoga therapy. I do breath work, and all of these things to help people connect back to themselves and to connect back to nature around them. A lot of people feel like they've lost touch with nature. And it's so funny. I have people in my clinic and I ask them, say, you know, you've been to my clinic, you see how beautiful it is. There's plants there, there's wood everywhere. And I tell these clients, I want you to touch the closest thing to you that you think is nature. A lot of them will get up and go touch a plant or a feather or the wooden walls or the big pocket doors. None of them touch themselves.
Yeah.
And I
So we
always
don't
tell
really
them,
see ourselves as part of
right,
the world anymore, or part of the planet
right,
anymore, or part of nature anymore.
exactly. And so I just tell them, sit back down, put your hand on your heart. You are nature. You are nature.
And how much of you kind of losing this job, but also really looking for something else, how much of that, like where you got to, so being all of these different, a healer basically is what I refer to you as. You were an overall healer to me. How much of that is what you needed? Like, I feel like every healer per se gets there because that's what they needed. That's what they were missing. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's being able to give back a little bit.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like 95% of the way,
Mm-hmm.
because most of the quote healers that you know found their way to the healing path because they're like yourself, your life was completely changed from your experiences to the healing work that you did on yourself. And see, that's what I call a healer. When you are working on yourself, you're the healer. Me,
Right.
I'm kind of the messenger. Like I'm the kind of
Sure.
hit messenger that gives you tools and teaches you how to use them. And then I let you do that healing work on you. But for me personally, like I haven't had any major health crises or anything like that. But I will say that I was going against my own nature and trying to do what society or my parents thought I should do. And that didn't fully resonate with me. And so it took me some time to figure out, for me to go back into my own nature, to become that herbalist, because I always have been. Like I said, you know, my grandfather, like I was 3 years old and my grandfather was taking me around and showing me plants and telling me what they were good for and showing me the ways of mama nature, you
Yeah.
know. And
I
so
want to touch on that a little bit because I feel like, and this has come up in discussion before. It makes me kind of sad a little bit when I really sit down and think about it, that we are not passing down this information anymore.
mhm, yeah,
I remember, you know, my grandmother talking about the same things, like, you know, using food as medicine or using herbs as medicine when I was a kid. But there's a certain point in time where that's kind of stopped being talked about. And these ideas of healing or using nature to heal are no longer passed down anymore. So, you know, it kind of skipped a generation with you a little bit.
yeah, it did a lot. My grandparents were definitely like herbalists and like nature people, people of the earth. My parents are too, to a certain degree. Like we had a giant garden growing up, things like that. Um, but they were out in the workforce more. Whereas like my grandfather, he was a farmer. And so, you know, farming's in my blood. Like
Yeah.
nature's literally in my blood. But you know, my father went out to work and had to make a living that way. So now I do remember like growing up that they would, go harvest some like spring greens and cook them and things like that. And again, like I said, they had a giant garden. So we were always out in the garden with our hands in the soil and things like that. But as far as it is interesting to me, that skipping of a generation, because my parents, unfortunately, I love them to pieces, but they're on way too many pharmaceutical drugs at this point.
Yeah.
And they've almost removed themselves because I don't know if it's a quick fix, if what people are looking for. And oftentimes, I mean, as you know, when you go for a quick fix like that, it might work for a little while, but really all it's doing is silencing your symptoms. They're still there, but they're maybe not quite as noticeable, or they're silenced. And so the pot of water is still boiling over, and all they've done is put a lid on it.
Right.
So
Right.
it'll help for a while, but things are still going to boil over at some point.
Yeah,
So
and you're so right about the quick fix. You're not necessarily getting to the root of the problem or the cause of why these symptoms are flaring up, and you're not, kind of feeding yourself the things that it needs to calm it or cool it, or
right,
whatever the issue may be, but then masking it for a certain amount of time and maybe
right,
creating other issues that will need to be masked later on.
exactly.
Um, I want to go backwards though. You mentioned that as a healer, you're more of a messenger, kind of giving the information of what the person needs to heal themselves. So that kind of leads me into Bowen and
Yes.
the Bowen therapy that you do. Um, I had never heard of Bowen. And I remember like the way you described it to me when I was asking you questions was really funny, because you're like, I can't really explain it to you. It's
Okay.
kind of batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, what is it? How does it work? It's body work, right? Because
Yes.
you and I did Bowen with you. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about my experience down the road, but I want to know what Bowen is, where it came from, everything that you can tell me
Okay.
about Bowen.
Yeah. Bowen is crazy, weird, and magical, and it just works. And so if you can get past the weird to start with, a lot of my clients, like I just tell them, just expect weird when you come to see me. Like I just kind of put that caveat out there. This is going to be weird, but it works. Just trust me. And most people
Yeah.
do. It's like when they
Yeah.
come to see me, they trust me. And what happens is they start healing. And it's really Bowen therapy. I've done it now for over 9 years. And I'm telling you, every single session, it continues to amaze me, which is why I've done it for that long.
Yeah.
Like I still am a licensed massage therapist. I do offer massages every once in a while, but Bowen keeps me going because Bowen therapy, it continues to amaze me. So a little history of where it came from. So Tom Bowen is from Australia, and he was a cement factory worker. And he had what he referred to as a gift from God. Basically, he could see energy on people. Not everybody can do that. So even if you can't see energies on people, you can still give an amazing Bowen therapy session. Luckily, I am able to tap into the energies of people's bodies. So that's always awesome and better for me, because then I can really get to what I need to without having to go through a recipe so much necessarily. So there was an accident one day at the cement factory where one of Tom Bowen's fellow workers fell from quite a distance, and he was hurt pretty bad. So before like the paramedics or whatever came over to take care of him, Tom Bowen went over and just did a couple of things to his body. And his coworker was actually able to walk away relatively unharmed, considering the tremendous fall that he took. And so people are like, oh my God, what did you do? And how else can you explain it other than saying it's a gift from God? Because he
Mhm.
was not trained in any body work. He was not an osteopath. He was not a doctor. He was not a massage therapist or a physical therapist. So he didn't have the vocabulary to say what he was doing. So what happened from there is people realized he had a gift, and other people just started to bombard him saying, I have this problem, I have this issue, can you help me? So he opened up his house to his clients, and he had them on the couches and the beds and the floors. And eventually his wife was like, look, you've got to get these people out of here. You've got to open up a clinic. And so he did. And people would go all across Australia, like drive 4 hours one way to see him. As it stands, like with the information that I've been giving from the higher powers that be within the Bowen Therapy academies and things like that, the numbers that they say is that he saw around 13,000 people a year, which is insane, a lot of people. And his success rate was somewhere around like 86%. But I feel like that had to have been a higher success rate, just from what I've seen in the past 9 years of doing it.
So what exactly was he doing? I mean, again, I have experienced Bowen with you, and I can give you, you know, how I describe it, but like physically, what was he doing?
So physically, what we call it is a stretch, roll, and release technique. And it works a couple of different ways. Like my theory is it works a couple of different ways in the body. So we work on muscles, tendons, ligaments, and nerve bundles in the body, depending on where we're working, obviously. And so we do a stretch technique. So it works cross fiber to the muscle or the tendon or ligament. And what happens is when you start to stretch the fascia of the body, the nervous system fires up and it starts signaling the brain that something's different down here to pay attention. So then we do what's called a challenge into that muscle or tendon, etc., to give it a little stretch and a little more information for the nervous system. And then we roll over that muscle or tendon. And it creates a vibration through that placement, like whichever muscle we're working, or muscles or tendons or whatever. So that resets the tension within that structure that we're working on. And then we step away. We actually leave the room. And what happens is in that time frame that we leave the room, there are sensations that you can feel on your body where I've touched you. And those sensations hang around for a little bit and then typically dissipate. But in that time frame, what's happening is the body has reset the tension in the structure, like the muscle or tendon or ligament. And then the nervous system responds back to like send a healing message to that area. So the body's healing itself. Like I said, we just give the body messages of where we need the healing to occur.
So you're the messenger. I mean, like you said before, you're just giving the body information saying, hey, wake up. This is where we're working. This is where we need you to be.
Yes. So it's working on pinpoint precise locations in the body, trying to stimulate a certain type of healing response so that your body will heal itself.
Because that's how it was built. And that's one thing that I like to remind people. You are built to heal yourself.
Yes.
You know, you may be kind of bogging yourself down at this point and not remember that, or overworking it to where it needs woken up a little bit, but you are designed to heal.
Yeah.
So what are some of the ailments that that Bowen is good for?
Well, I love what you said, because we are a self-healing mechanism. Like we really are. Our bodies are constantly healing. When our bodies stop healing, that's when we die. We actually can no longer heal, and then we pass away. So in my 9 years of doing Bowen therapy, I have seen, oh my gosh, I've seen so many things come into the clinic. It's hard to like narrow them down, but I will I will try for you. So anything musculoskeletal. So you got like back pain, sciatica, you've got shoulder problems, hip problems, knee problems, ankles, anything to do with like sports injuries or even concussions. We have a huge concussion protocol that helps so much. Then we go into stuff like migraines, TMJ, vertigo, hormonal irregularities, fertility issues, menstrual issues, respiratory, kidney, basically, honestly, anything. I have seen so many things respond super well from the information that Bowen has given them.
And it's just to kind of get your body kind of moving, talking.
Yeah.
So and that kind of leads me into, because I really have, my own personal experience. I would love to talk about that a little bit if you're willing to go through like our time together. We had 3 treatments together.
Yes.
And so I wanted to experience so that I knew how best to talk about it.
Yes.
And I went into it not having any expectations whatsoever, because like you said, it's not something that I can, it's part woo-woo, part science.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of magic to it, but there's also this physical aspect of, talking to the nerves or making the nerves talk to your muscles and all of that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any expectations whatsoever, but, my main complaints going in were, I had some pain and swelling in my hands. I've got some autoimmune issues that these kinds of things flare up. And to tell you the truth, I came in and I told you, I really don't know why they flare up. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of my big indicator is joint pain in my hands and kind of inflammation in my hands. And then I had some issues with, one of my ears. Just, I could not figure out. A doctor couldn't figure out what it was, but just kind of this clicking in one of my ears that just would not go away. So we had 3 treatments together.
Yes.
We had some really interesting effects, I'll say.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. I think, was it my second treatment? First one? No, it was my first one.
It was your first one.
It was my first one. You were working in the area behind, like at the base of my head, base of the back of my head.
Yep.
And you did kind of a roll on one of those areas, and then you left.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a lot of the other areas that you worked on, my immediate feeling was kind of this electricity. It felt like, and I explained it to you later, it felt like parts of my body were talking to each other that hadn't talked in a really long time. It felt like this just kind of electricity from head to toe, kind of this buzzing. Like, oh my gosh, something's going on.
Yeah.
But then when you
that description.
Yeah. It felt like, oh, hey, you're alive.
It's a conversation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then when you worked on the back of my head, there was my left eye would not stop twitching. It was like there was so much information, or it had been, that area had been asleep. I can't even explain it, but it was the craziest thing. I could not get it. It was not like a twitch, that you kind of get like annoying muscle twitches. This was like fast rocket, like rapid fire twitching.
It was totally rapid fire twitching.
Yeah. It was nuts. So I want you to explain kind of my treatment, how you approached my treatment, everything that you worked on and why.
Okay. So the first session that we do, and we do this for everyone, no matter where they're coming from or what they need addressed, we always get them, we always do a balancing and a relaxing session first. So we work on the body. We always work on the body as a whole. We can always direct our attention to like where your problem areas are. So like you said, your hands were swollen and you had that ear issue. So I obviously directed a lot of the energy for all 3 sessions to those areas. But we always address your low back, your glutes, your hamstrings, your shoulders, your middle back, your neck. And these are what we call our basic relaxation moves. And these just help sort of get the nervous system to relax, to realize that it is not in parasympathetic, or it's in parasympathetic nervous system, no longer in sympathetic, no longer fight or flight. Like there's no emergencies, there's no fires to put out. Like we can rest. And once you're in parasympathetic nervous system, as you know, and as your listeners know, that's when the body does its healing, which is why sleep is so important, right? Because that's when our body creates the new normal that it needs. So after addressing a lot of those things, then we start working on more of the problem areas that you have. So for you specifically, and there's no way to know that this is true or not, but my sort of spidey sense on this is that you had a blockage in that left side, in the left ear. And so when we opened that blockage and let the actual like fluids flow, because we worked on the eustachian tube, we also worked on the energy of things to flow there too. I think it was just sort of a reaction of being blocked. It started to open. And sometimes when there's a lot of energy that's been blocked, you get that sort of rapid fire twitching. And then it'll slow down and slow down. And it's like, oh, okay, this is nice.
I'm telling you, it was the craziest thing ever. Again, especially when you go into it having zero expectations and you're like, whoa,
I think
what is happening here?
I think zero expectations is honestly the best way to approach just about everything.
Yeah.
In life, and especially with Bowen Therapy, because I'm not saying Bowen Therapy is going to work for everybody, because I'm sure there are people who it didn't really help, right? Mm-hmm. And again, that's why there's so many beautiful modalities out there, because there is something for everyone.
But it is an option, as if you are open to body work. It's one of those things that I like to refer to, like to put in your toolbox. This is a tool that I can try out to see if it worked. Because you usually recommend 3 sessions, and that's what we did.
Yes, in the beginning, and it depends on the person, whether their situation, their symptoms are acute or chronic. So it depends on how long they've had them. I usually say for baseline, anywhere between 3 to 5 sessions. And those sessions are spaced about a week apart, because we give your body enough time to completely process everything that it needs to process before we give it more information to process. So most people see relief in whatever they're coming into the clinic with their complaints within 3 to 5 sessions. Some people see them quicker, and depends if something's really chronic and they've had it for years and years, or it is like an autoimmune or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, we may need to push it out to even more sessions. It just depends. But I like people to start with 3. And then after that 3rd one, we see where they're at, and I can give you a judgment call of what we think, like if there is a follow-up treatment plan, what it would be, what it would look like. But honestly, a lot of the people that I see come in for 3 sessions, and then I don't see them for a while.
Yeah, because you do a pretty thorough intake as far as people's backgrounds, their health issues, areas of pain, etc. So you go into it pretty well versed on what the problem is. And I'll say, aside from the crazy eye twitching, some of the sensations, other than kind of the electricity that it felt like, my body was talking from like head to toe, but I did feel a lot of drainage. So because you worked a lot for me up in like the head and the neck area, and there was a lot of stuff. You could feel just a lot of movement, which was really interesting. Again, something I did not expect. That kind of we talked a little bit during our conversations about like lymphatic drainage. So,
Yeah,
and that's really important for anybody, but especially somebody with autoimmune problems like me who needs to kind of keep things flowing.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that and how important, um, getting like the lymph drainage going and how you work with people that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the lymph drainage is super, super important. Like you said, for people with autoimmune, just to keep everything moving and keep all the toxins flushed out. But honestly, everyone, especially, I'm pointing my finger at everyone who's on all these Zoom meetings recently, sitting at a desk at work, because when you are stagnant, your lymph is not moving, and
Yeah.
you need to move your body and or have body work done to your body to help move your lymph.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the easiest ways to move your lymph is one of those little mini trampolines. I don't know what they're called. I call them a
Just,
mini tramp. Like, just
yeah.
get on the mini tramp and jump around for like 3 or 4 minutes. And
People are
that
going to be rushing out and buying these for their offices now.
yeah, that would be great, actually. Everybody needs to jump on a mini tramp. But if you don't have one, just, a couple of, I don't know, squats and little jumps at the top will help a lot. But
Yeah.
your lymphatic system is a part of your immune system. And we want to keep as many toxins that it's collecting flushed out as much as possible. So Bowen Therapy does address lymphatic drainage. If you do not have a Bowen therapist in your area, chances are you will have a massage therapist who specializes in lymphatic massage therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend that. Also, cupping is really good too. So if you can find a therapist who does not stationary cupping, but just overall cupping, that will actually help move the lymph as well.
That's really interesting. And I think that was one of the things that we suspected a little bit was kind of a lymphatic stagnation for me
Yeah.
as far as my hands were, you know,
Yeah.
I they were just so painful.
Yeah.
And with multiple autoimmune diseases, I feel like, I kind of have to work overtime to make sure that I'm doing things intentionally to kind of keep those symptoms at bay.
Yeah.
And again, that was just kind of another tool in my toolbox. And I had great success. I mean, after the 3 treatments, my rings aren't tight anymore. My pain's gone away. It's been what, a month?
I think so.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, that the pain has been gone and the swelling has gone down and my ear is no longer an issue. I don't have any clicking. And so
Awesome.
it was this crazy thing where no way that this can work, but it did, which is why I
Yeah.
love this stuff so much, because as much as as much as we love these things that can be backed by 100% science, there's
Yeah.
also a little bit of like woo woo to some of these modalities that you just
Yeah.
can't explain. And it's
Yeah.
fun.
It's kind of like the bro science is what they call it, like in gyms and things like that, where all of these dudes who've been working out in a certain way, they know that it's science, but science hasn't caught up to their
Yeah.
bro science yet. A lot of these modalities, it's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one's going to make any money off of researching, the science behind Bowen therapy, or,
Yeah.
they've done science on massage therapy, right? But it's going to cost someone way too much money to have Bowen therapy researched in a way where they can actually publish studies. So, you know,
And I'm going to say something very blasphemous right here, but does it matter if it works?
um, you know what? I agree with you 100%, because if it works, that's all that matters. And that's what my clients tell me day in and day out. I don't care what you do. It works, and that's what I care about. Like, I
And you're
get to
trained and certified. And I'm not saying like
yeah.
somebody who's not trained and
Oh,
certified,
sure.
but you went through a lot of training.
Yeah.
Um, and there is a method to the madness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
wacky, but
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I want to touch on something. So I asked you during one of our treatments, what is, what is the one thing, what is the one ailment that you see kind of the most like relief for? And what did you say to me?
I think, if I recall, that I said I see too many, that I can't give you a list, but that
Yeah.
one of my specialties is migraines and headaches. And
Yes.
it has no personal ties to me. I do not have migraines or headaches. My husband doesn't. None of my immediate family members or immediate friends has them. But I just see so much change in 3 weeks of a person coming in with debilitating migraines.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start to change. They get less frequent or less intense.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 sessions, they like might get a little bit of a headache or they might be completely gone. And it just awes me so much that that's like become my favorite thing to work on is migraines.
Right. Because, and again, I also have not suffered from migraines. I'll get tension headaches. I carry
Mhm.
tension really, up here, but I can list too many people that I know who that is
Yeah.
debilitatingly painful. It affects their work. It affects their daily life.
Yeah.
What how do you work on somebody dealing with migraines? What is kind of the method behind that? What are you getting moving? What are you getting talking? I guess what's the method?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's still something that sort of perplexes me still a little bit, which is why I find it still so fascinating and love working with migraine clients so much. Um, but what we do that's different, I think, than a lot of other modalities out there is, like I said, we always work on the body as a whole to get it to relax and to get it to heal, to get it to listen, to pay attention, right? But we work in the front of the throat. We work around the ears. We work around the TMJ area. And it doesn't matter if you have, like, I've seen all types of migraines because there's the cluster ones, the ones with auras, the ones that put you down for 2 or 3 days. I mean, all of the types of headaches and migraines, I have seen this work for all of them. So no matter what, like, the sort of trigger is, this helps. Now, obviously, if you are like in a house that has a lot of mold, it can only do so much. You need to get rid of that mold or perhaps look at getting out of that situation entirely, of
Yeah.
course. But for the most part, I have seen incredible results with that. And again, we just, like you had said, we open things up and we get the communication flowing, we get the lymph flowing, we get the blood flowing, we get everything open and receptive, and the body just does its own thing of healing.
Does what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Because we don't know. I mean, there's no one can really pinpoint what exactly it is that triggers chronic migraine. I mean,
Right.
there are different things that they have been linked to, but I think it's very different for every person.
Yes.
Um, so something like this, where, like you said, maybe it is mold, and maybe there's kind of this outside force, and getting rid of that will
Hmm.
help the problem, but that
Yeah,
could be something completely different for somebody else.
absolutely.
um so being able to kind of rely on your own body systems to do the work for you, there's just a process of waking everything up and saying,
Right.
hey, we've got a problem here,
Yeah.
you need to get up there and fix it.
Yeah. And also too, like, that's where, if someone does suffer and have different triggers, that's where I can go into like an herbal nutrition consultation with them. And we can sort of look at it from that lens or that perspective
Right.
and do the body work as well. But we can look at what food triggers may be triggering for you for a migraine or a headache. If there's environmental issues, if there's stress issues, if there's hydration issues. So, I mean, most people I know have gotten pretty good about figuring out what their triggers are.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to start somewhere, start with Bowen Therapy if you're still experiencing issues with headaches or migraines. And then if you want to take it like that next step further to try to figure out what's going on so that they continue to stay away, then I would look at like, you know, herbal or nutrition consultation just to like take it that next step further.
And that's great. I really like the overall approach um, to looking at an ailment like that. Okay, here there's body work, and then we also got to look at what you're putting inside,
Right.
and what maybe you could remove. And
Yeah.
now, how often? Because you do you do can you do blood work, or is that something like you would refer to another practitioner and then use those results to kind of work with somebody who maybe has an issue?
So I can read blood work, but I don't actually have a way to have them to do it. So I would send them to like their, you know, provider to get their blood work. And once they get their results, I'm happy to go over them with the client so that we can look at what's going on there too, to see if like maybe there's some, you know, deficiencies that we can move into sufficiency.
Right. So really it boils down to imbalances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Imbalances in your nervous system, imbalances in your nutrients and minerals,
Yep.
imbalances in your diet.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things that you can look at that can trigger these other ailments. I
Yeah.
really like that you kind of work like that as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
on the body and the body. And then you also have your herbal work that you do.
Yes.
Now, tell me a little bit about that. I know you gave me the background of how that it kind of came into play for you, but how big of a part is this in you being a healer and working with people?
It's one of my favorite ways to actually work with people because I love connecting people to their plants.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite thing to do because then, you know, there's not many people that maca or, you know, something from the Amazon is their plant. A
Yeah.
lot of people, their plants are around them and they don't even know it, or they identify them as quote weeds in their yard. Um, so I am,
Dandelion.
yeah, dandelion number one. Oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh. Yes, we could do a whole podcast just about
I
dandelion.
know.
So, you know, I am certified in Ayurvedic herbology and also TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, herbs as well. But honestly, I find the most joy out of working with Western herbalism because I formulate for clients. That's one of my favorite things to do. So you won't find that I have a shop that you can come in and just like buy stuff.
Yeah.
Like either in my clinic or, you know, even online. Like occasionally I might have something that is in a small batch form, but I really like um, taking your information and sitting down with the plants. And so I'm like a 50% spiritual, 50% like scientific when it comes to that, because I look at, you know, the actions of the plants and I look at your constitution and try to figure out what's going to help you get where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also let the plants speak to me. And they're, you know, when I said, like, if I were to sit down in my apothecary of herbs with you in mind, it's like they're these herbs that are like me, I can help. And
Yeah.
so I just gather all the me's that, that show up. And then I go, okay, what can we do to formulate something? And what I love the most about Western herbalism is that we can change the formula. So let's say we have a formula of five plants for you. And you're like, you know, Melita, this works pretty well, but it's not quite getting it. I can look at your formula, pull one herb out, put a different one in its place, and you're like, man, that's it.
Yeah.
That was it. Whereas with Ayurvedic and TCM herbs, they're mostly pre-formulated and you can't change something that's already formulated. So they work for the, like maybe 80% of the population will get that to work for them. But there's the other 20% like yourself where you have autoimmune issues and it doesn't always work, right? Like
Yeah.
it almost works mostly, but not all the way.
So this, you're able to kind of go in and tweak it a little bit and kind of
Yes.
perfect the
Yes.
formula for this specific body.
Yes, we can fine
And
tune it.
so what are some of the ailments, the clients that you work with that you do herbal formulations for? What are some of the ailments that you see the most of?
A lot of gut issues.
Mhm.
Surprise, surprise.
Shocker.
I know. A lot of menstrual issues. Also, surprise, surprise. A lot of endocrine hormone issues as well. Things like that.
So a
Sleep.
lot of hormonal stuff.
Yeah,
That's
sleep
really
issues.
interesting.
And sleep issues too. People can't sleep. And when people can't sleep, everything else gets thrown off balance.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's huge. And especially I feel like this year, especially the stress that people are dealing with
Right.
is crazy off the charts,
Yep.
and we could all use a little calming down and
Yes.
more sleep. Maybe
Yes.
not even wake up until next year and see how it goes.
Yeah. Let's see how that goes.
Do over.
Yes.
So what are some of the biggest transformations? I mean, do people, it's not, herbalism is not a quick fix. And again, I think that's important for people to understand, is that when you're going to incorporate these things into your daily life, into your diet and something that you're consuming, it's not like a pharmaceutical where it's going to
Right.
mask that symptom immediately or within a couple hours and then you're good to go and then you pop another pill tomorrow.
Yeah.
How does it work for people?
That's a good question. I mean, and you're right. It can help with symptoms quickly, but it's definitely not a quick fix because sometimes we need to tweak it. And also, as you change, we can change the herbs for you too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, like a lot of people have like animal totems. There's also plant totems too. So like you may have like, let's say dandelion may just be like, your plant totem for throughout your life. But then you have plants that come in that want to help you during certain periods of times. Like right now, a lot of people are leaning towards adaptogens, which is just as, it's a category of herbs that help us be more resilient towards stress. And that's all well and good, but I like to shift focus to moving people a little more towards nervines, which are specific for the nervous system. Because when we can get the nervous system to relax and to heal, perhaps we won't need to take these adaptogens to help us deal with the stress. Whereas in some time down the road, they may end up backfiring on us because we think, oh, we're so resilient now, we can handle more and more and more stress, when really our nervous system's underneath is like crying for help.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can shift them towards more like nervines and things like that, we can get kind of like with Bowen Therapy, it's sort of the messenger of like, let the body heal itself, but give the body the tools that it needs to do it. So the nourishment, the food, the herbs, the sleep, the stress management, the movement or exercise, all of these things.
Right, because there's other work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be the herbs um, that are going to fix the problem. I mean, there's other work
Yeah.
that has to be done on top
Yeah.
of it. There was a reason that you got there, and it could be a combination of things that need to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And no one has a dandelion deficiency,
Right.
right? You don't have
No.
you don't get blood work and they go, oh my God, you're low on dandelion.
Right.
I'm gonna
People look at you like you're crazy.
up the dandelion. But you do have like deficiencies in the micronutrients. Like a lot of people always talk about macronutrients, but within the micronutrients, that's where you're getting your vitamins and your minerals and things like that. And a lot of the plants, just like food is medicine, a lot of the herbs are medicine as well, because they carry a lot of those vitamins and minerals, those chemical constituents that you would need in order to move you from deficiency to sufficiency. So I like to work, the way I work with people is food is first. Food's medicine. Food is always first, because you have to eat. You might as well eat the things that are going to nourish your body. Herbs can help shift you more quickly and support you. And then I always go for supplements last. I only do supplements if someone needs, I mean, if you look at, you know, the supplementation is like $1 billion industry. I mean, they're, honestly, I hate to say this, but they're almost as bad as the pharmaceutical industry at this point, because not all supplements are made equally.
Right.
And you don't know what's in them, and third-party testing and all of this stuff. But I only use supplements for people if they're in a deficiency state, to get them to a sufficiency state more quickly. And then we talk about the foods and the herbs to keep them there.
To maintain.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so interesting. And I remember when my health was just awful, and I had shifted to, you know, out of desperation, the alternative side of things, because nothing else was working. And I remember, you know, my practitioners kind of recommending, you know, these herbal blends and certain foods like this diet, and kind of removing this. And I was so overwhelmed, and I was like, I don't understand. How does any of this help me? And it was, I feel like a total asshole now, like a complete idiot at this point, because if you think about it, and if you really break it down, these are the things that we've used for thousands, if not millions of years.
Totally.
However, how long have people been on the planet now? I mean,
Right.
from the beginning of time,
Yes.
human history, we used these things. We used herbs, we used food, we used all of these things to help us heal, both internally and externally. And it really irritates me to no end that this is not incorporated more into traditional medicine, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know why we can't use both. And I don't know why it's an and or kind of situation, an either or kind of situation. And I know it's not everywhere. Maybe kind of where we live, it's a little bit more, people think you're nuts if this is the route that you choose to take, because it's not easy, and it's there's a stigma behind it, I guess, which,
Sure.
you know, I've had that conversation with other practitioners where it's called alternative, yet it's kind of the first, it came before
right.
what we would call traditional today.
It's the OG medicine.
Yeah.
It's the original medicine. And I like to look at it as a yes and approach.
Yes.
Because both are necessary. If someone, you know, gets in an accident or cuts their leg off, they're not going to run to me and say, Melita, I need some herbs.
I need some salve. Can you make me some salve?
No.
No, exactly. And you're completely right. Again, I just wish that it was talked about more. And I wish that this was a modality that wasn't kind of poo-pooed, or, you know, people say, oh, that's just woo nonsense or whatever. That these were things that were viable options that people saw for themselves.
Yeah. And I kind of have a theory on that, because I mean, the world of herbalism alone, like if you did nothing but just study herbalism like your entire life, you'd still never know everything that there is to know, because there is so much to know.
Right.
But the thing is, you know, I don't know any doctors, and I know a lot of them. I see a lot of them in my clinic, actually, and it brings such joy to me when the medical community comes to see me for their own personal healing. Like, I love that more than anything. I have a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, a lot of physical therapists, occupational therapists, other massage therapists. I mean, I love seeing those people.
I would love to eavesdrop on one of your conversations with one of your physician clients.
Well, and I know that they're going to be better physicians because they're taking care of themselves, right? They're putting their self-care as a priority, which is so important. But I don't know any doctor or anybody who's gone into healthcare who didn't want to help someone.
Yeah.
No one says like, I want to go through 14 years of school to like make a lot of money and have a yacht. I've never known any doctors who's done that. But the
Yeah.
thing is, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, I don't know which yet, but they have so much schooling to teach them the things that they need to do for like trauma care and quick response care, right? The allopathic doctors don't, it's not incorporated into their curriculum to study food as medicine or herbs as medicine. And I know a lot of doctors who are very much open to it and refer their patients to me all the time, but it's because it's outside of their wheelhouse.
Yeah. I really
And
like that. I like that we're kind of shifting to this open-minded
yeah,
approach to the whole body.
right. And because of the system that is our medical Western system right now, they they don't have the time to spend more than 10 or 15 minutes with you in a quick consult. And so that's where I get to bridge the gap. Because how often do you see your doctor? Once, maybe twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
twice if you're lucky, or when, things are going badly and you need help. But I'm that practitioner that you see more frequently, and I get to spend more time with you. And I always tell people that whenever they're filling out their intake form with me for the herbal nutrition consultation, like, I'm not kidding you when I say it's 40 pages. It's going to take you some time because I want to know everything there is to know about you. I want to know about your family history, your history, any traumatic events in your life, how your systems are now, where you want to go, what kind of food you're eating now, so I can see if you're missing some like bigger nutrients or vitamins or whatever. And I am privileged to get to spend that time with people in that way, whereas the doctors can't. It's not that they don't want to, but they'd have to go out into a private practice, and then all the complications that come along with that too. And so the system is just not set up for them to practice, I think, in the way they want to. They're in a machine, right? They're in a machine.
And it's really kind of hard to get out of that. And you're right. I don't think that any physician goes into this saying that they want to spend 15 minutes every couple of, or
Right.
like twice a year with their patients. And but I will
Exactly.
say, the thing that I really love the most about how I've approached my health with the practitioners that I have now is the time and the relationships that I've built with them.
Yes.
And that means that they spend a lot of time with me,
Yeah.
and I get to ask and dive deep with them. Like,
Yes.
it's a relationship that you and I have where I can tell you, this is what's going on. Let's dig a little deeper. And the
Definitely.
digging gets done.
Yes.
It's a relationship that that feels like you're a partner,
Yeah.
not kind of being like rushed in and rushed out.
Right.
And the digging part,
Yeah.
okay, this didn't work, well, let's see what else might be going on,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the amount of time, like I said, that each practitioner that I've seen over the last few years has, I mean, my first intake with probably all of them that I've ever had, that I've ever seen, and all of the modalities that I've dealt with, has probably been an hour.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
first,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, after
Yeah.
pages and pages and pages
Yeah.
of intake information.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know more
Yes.
about me than my husband, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and we're an unbiased opinion as far as like
Right.
your health. We are on the outside looking in. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you are dealing with so for me, whenever I come up against something, I usually will see what I can do for myself, but I'm very much attached to my outcome. And so if I'm dealing with something that I need an outsider's perspective, I will, consult with someone else, like a naturopath or a fellow herbalist or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we all need someone that can get a bigger, broader perspective, because maybe there's just something really small and silly that I'm missing that I
I had
shouldn't.
another practitioner say to me one time, she's like, I'm a detective. That's all I am. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
detective. I'm trying to
Yes.
solve a problem, a
Yep.
puzzle, And sometimes that doesn't happen. I mean, you're not going to come in sometimes and I'm going to be like, oh, it's this,
Right.
Here's your formula. It's a
Yes.
lot of digging, and that's where the relationship building comes in, because you're working together to solve that problem.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I do too. I'm like, I tell people I used to be a private investigator in a previous life.
As we all need that, though. I mean, if I go backwards to, when I first got sick, I was my own detective, because I didn't accept that what I was being told was what was wrong with me, because I knew that it wasn't. So
Right.
I had to do the digging,
Yes.
and then kind of I found those practitioners that helped me really,
Yes.
do the work and pinpoint it, because, and I've had this conversation with other guests on the podcast. You get the diagnosis, but then something that's really important to me was to let go of that label. That wasn't, it just ended up being an imbalance for me. I don't really want to say that I am Hashimoto's, I am Graves' disease, I am adrenal fatigue. I don't want to say all of those things. It is an imbalance for me.
Yeah.
And then letting go of those labels and then working to kind of work on the imbalance was something that was huge for me personally. But
I love that.
so you also, and I want to touch on this before we wrap up, because you very much have a mind, body, spirit approach to your healing, and you as a healer. And this is something we've never talked about before. So this will be new for me to talk about with you, is your Akashic readings. I will preface this by saying I don't know anything about Akashic readings, and you and I have not done one, but I feel like maybe we do, and then we need to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm always game to open up your records.
So what is it? How do you work with clients? It's very much the spiritual side of things that people are kind of scared to delve into sometimes.
Yes. I will say that you will never hear any information that you're not ready to hear. So Akashic record readings are one of the most beautiful, empowering ways to work with clients, because there's only love and truth within the records. And so people come to me with so many questions about their lives, their paths, their careers, their relationships, all of these things that, again, they need a higher perspective. And this is where the Akashic records comes in, because when you come in to see me, and I love doing them in person, because then I can serve you tea and, do the things that I love to do to nourish people.
Which, by the way, I love your tea blends.
Thank you. So then we sit down, I say a prayer to open up your records, and then usually, but not always, the Akashic record keepers have a message for you right away. And then they'll basically turn it over to you, and you can ask whatever question is on your mind and your heart. And again, people have asked, I've done so many readings at this point, and they're all amazing. They're not mine to remember, so I don't remember bits and pieces of them unless I ask very specific permission to take a piece away from a reading. And it's very, very infrequent that I do that, because again, it's not my information, it's for them. So they ask all the questions that they have. The Akashic record keepers dive deep into what it is that they want to talk about, again, with love and truth. And there's no doom and gloom. There's no, it's not a future prediction. It's not a psychic reading, but it is based on who you are as a soul. So it's based on, and if you want to look at it as past lives and future lives and this present life, because you on the soul level are you, no matter what life or past life or whatever you've been in. You may have looked different. You may have been a male. You may have been a female. There's so many different variables, but you are still you. You are that thread of you, and there's no one else like you out there. But you've played different roles in different movies throughout your past lives, throughout your lifetimes. So
this is basically a record of who you are at soul level.
Yes. And it's a really interesting thing. in the Bible, they refer to it as the book of life. Like everything is written in the book of life. And that book of life is your Akashic record. And so there's sort of, if you want to look at the Akashic record keepers as like a little specific set of spirit guides of sorts, they are your librarian. When I say the prayer to open up your records, it's sort of like I'm calling upon them. They go up, they pull your book down, and then we can look through it and get answers. So sometimes people want to know about certain things in their past lives or this lifetime. A lot of people want to know about this lifetime, which is obviously the most important because it's the one you're fully present in this moment in time.
Yeah.
But there is no question that's off topic. We can dive into anything. We can talk about anyone that is in relationship to you. We can't obviously open up anyone else's record without them being there and getting their permission. But we can see a lot about how they relate to you. So like, for instance, if you wanted to ask about your husband and your kids, you could, right? And you'll get information because you're in relationship with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. How important do you think that understanding yourself at soul level is for people to have a very fulfilled life and relationship with themselves and how they understand who they are?
That's a really good question. I think it's really important because I think the more you know who you are, the more true you can be to yourself. It's like to thy own self be true, right? And the truer you can be to you, the more authentic you can be. And the less you can let go of what society or your parents think you should do or that you think you should do to be a certain way or to look a certain way or to act a certain way. Like you just get to be you. You get licensing to be you.
Do you think having this information, like you said, gives you permission to be who you always felt like you were inside? Because I feel like that's a really big hang up for people. And with my own clients, so in my own coaching practice, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That is a really big one. People cannot give themselves permission to be who
Yeah.
they really are. They are living their life for someone else or for what they think like another person's idea of them should be. How is having this information important to allowing yourself to kind of let all that stuff go and say, okay, well, this is who I am at soul level.
Yeah.
I imagine that would be a weight kind of lifted.
I'm going to say these words and I don't use these words lightly. It's life-changing.
Yeah.
I've had so many people break down in tears of acceptance for themselves of who they are at a soul level and be encouraged to be themselves, to be true to themselves, because otherwise, it's sort of like living a lie. Like if you're living, like you said, for someone else, or even the way you want to see yourself instead of just being yourself, it's really life-changing. So many people, like kind of the general consensus is once a reading's done, it is sort of like a weight lifted. They're like, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed because there's a lot of information like that happens in an hour. There's a lot of information that's discussed in an hour's time frame, but they feel relieved that they get to be themselves and that they're loved for who they really are instead of who they think they should be.
Because we can talk ourselves into a lie pretty easily. We can create a life around ourselves that is a lie that you don't even realize you're doing it sometimes.
Right. Well, I mean,
and I think that's a weight that a lot of us feel. And I think that it is one of the major contributors of the massive amount of stress and the nervous system issues that so many of us carry on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I mean, all a belief is a thought that you have thought over and over again. And it's gained quite a bit of traction. It's gained a lot of momentum because if someone tells you something over and over again, you'll start to believe it. Well, you can do the same thing for yourself. You can say something in your head or out loud over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden it's a belief. It's what you believe.
Yeah.
And so to constantly challenge your thoughts and your beliefs to discover the truer you is just really impactful. Like it not only changes you, but that change in you ripples out to everyone else around you.
It is pretty amazing to kind of see those transformations when somebody starts to live the life that they were always meant to live, being who they are. And it doesn't have to be anything like crazy, fantastic.
Right.
I mean, it could be really small changes, but it does filter down into everybody else around them. Because when you're truly being you, people can feel that.
Yeah.
People around you can feel that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me, you kind of mentioned that, you see doctors and nurses and physical therapists and stuff in your, doing your like Bowen treatments. And that is something that is really surprising to me. So people who are so based in data and science and things that they can prove, do you still see people on the spiritual side who surprise you?
Yes, I do. And I love
I
it.
love it.
It just makes my heart just shine so much brighter whenever they, come in to like get to know themselves on that level as well, because they're human too, So it's beautiful.
I wonder how many of us avoid doing this kind of spiritual work that you can't explain it per se. And again, I have never had an Akashic record reading or anything like that, but it's that spiritual side of things that, you can't explain, but you come out changed on the other end.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
It is.
Wow. Well, Melita, I am so grateful for your time and this beautiful conversation. And I really hope that, especially people in our local area, will check out your clinic and come see you at Zen from Within, for Bowen, or, your herbalism, the Akashic record readings. Is there anything else that the clinic offers that I should know about or that we should tell everybody about?
I am, first of all, I'm super grateful. Thank you. I'm very honored to spend this time with you and for your listeners. I think this change that's happening slowly it's happening within ourselves. It's rippling out, and small changes like that. What is it? Many hands make light work. When we're all working on ourselves, everything else is just going to ripple out even easier. So thank you for all the work that you do as well. I offer everything that I do as a distance session, obviously, except for the Bowen Therapy, which is in person. So yeah, I offer herbal and nutrition consultations, the Akashic record readings. I mean, I've had clients from across the pond. I mean, so international clients to get Akashic record readings with me. Bowen Therapy, yoga therapy, breath work. I mean, if people want to have a tarot reading, we can play with cards too. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So the only thing that requires in person is the Bowen. So that would be for just local or surrounding area people.
Yes.
And then where can people find the information about you and all of your services?
Well, I do want to mention that if you want to see if there's a Bowen practitioner, Bowen therapist near you, you can go to americanbowen.academy. So just in case people don't live in the Morgantown area and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to try out this weird Bowen thing. So they can check that out. And for me, I'm zenfromwithin.com. I'm on Instagram at zenfromwithin, and then also Facebook as well.
Awesome. Well, I hope people do kind of give your website a look and get in there and get a visit. Like I said, the Bowen Therapy helped me. And now I feel like I have to come in for Akashic reading. So
yeah, you do.
I mean, if I'm going to do all this other work, I might as well do the spiritual side too.
It would be amazing. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Melita. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.